Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, man, do I have a case of that Chargers fever right now, dude. OTAs, all these images coming out, superstars in the same place, brand new Chargers-looking team. I'm absolutely obsessed with the thought of how much potential this team could have going into the new season, man. My mind is racing with questions. How will this new roster look early as we approach training camp? What will this new defense look like, especially with a lot of these guys having experience in the Staley system? But most of all, I want to know what new and exciting developments could spark with just so much talent on the roster now. This is going to provide some serious competition for a lot of players on the roster bubble. A lot of that is just talking about free agents. What about our rookies? Right? What are our rookies going to look like in their first year? So today we're going to throw down some bold predictions on what I think could happen in this year's training camp. And a lot of these stories are worth following as we get closer to the season with just how jam-packed this roster looks right now. Because, guys, if Staley can get everybody on the same page early, this team's going to come out the gate hot and ready like a $5 Little Caesars pizza. Pizza. You know what? So far, things are looking outstanding. So many players attended OTAs, man. This team is well aware of the huge potential they're carrying into the 2022 season, so it should be a good one, man. Before we do get started, question in the comments for the Bold fam. Who's going to be your prediction for the Chargers 2022 training camp star? There's always a player that kind of, comes out of nowhere and looks really, really good and gives us a lot of hope for what they can do in the actual season. I'll give you guys my answer at the end of the video as well. Before we do get started, guys, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. My 2022 Chargers training camp bold predictions video. Let's get right into it, guys. We got a lot of things that I want to cover in this video, so let's just jump right into the first player, Derwin James, the quarterback of the defense. Man, dudes, just Derwin James and what he can provide this season is going to be so important to whether or not the Chargers can overtake this very stacked AFC West. And there's a lot of new faces joining the team for the first time. Khalil Mack, JC Jackson, etc., etc. I feel like Derwin will step up as a true leader of men, right? We call him the quarterback of the defense for a reason, a true leader. And I feel like Derwin James is going to be the glue that brings all these new pieces together, gets everybody on the same page on defense, and really gives the Chargers a good shot at getting on the ground running, right, as soon as week 1 approaches. So Derwin James is going to be a very big part of this defense, and I do feel like he is one of the best in the NFL to accomplish what the Chargers are trying to accomplish in 2022. As another bold prediction, I do think we're going to see a lot more snaps in the box during practice than maybe even out deep this training camp. We're seeing a lot of new personnel on the team. This is going to unlock a lot of new possibilities in how you can move Derwin James all over this defense. So that's going to be my bold prediction. We see more snaps for him in the box than out deep, and I do think that's going to be very beneficial to the Chargers in keeping their opponents on their toes. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the Chargers' highly coveted quarterback in Justin Herbert, the superstar. We actually hit such a slam dunk with Justin Herbert, dude. My prediction for him, Justin Herbert and the QB run, right? The design quarterback run. And Herbert, I know what the consensus opinion is on quarterback runs, but hear me out, right? Herbert is huge. And he's adding a lot more yards to his already impressive arm by really getting jacked this offseason. I think the last we heard, he was somewhere in like 245. Lots of muscle. He's starting to look like a prime Cam Newton out there. But what could be shocking to me as well is to see Herbert fine-tune his scrambling a little bit, right? We want to keep him healthy, want to keep him safe, but we also want to use every skill set he has to offer for the team. I just want to see the Chargers find a way to design Justin Herbert on the run to be a little bit safer, right? Go ahead and make sure you take those free yards if they are playing out deep, if they're not respecting, the ground game as much. Give Justin Herbert a little bit more room to grab those extra yards, but do it safely off the sidelines with those slides. He has to maybe fine-tune his sliding just a little bit. I think I like that with Justin Herbert. He has so much to offer this offseason, but that's going to be my bold prediction, is that we see a lot of drills in which he carries the ball and carries it safely, okay? Next up, we've got JT Woods. I do want to talk about, I feel like he's going to get heavily involved very early. And could this be a slight indicator of an Alohi Gilman cut? Maybe. But in the terms of JT Woods, the player, he's shown very impressive playmaking ability out deep, right? And this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about with Derwin James. This could provide confidence in playing Derwin James in the box and down low just a little bit more. So JT Woods, I feel like the training and coaching staff is going to be very interested in the quality of his play very early, because once again, that could allow them to move Derwin a lot more. And JT Woods, definitely a playmaker out there. If you guys have checked out his highlights, this dude is a playmaking machine. He's constantly going after the ball, almost like the Mike Williams of the defense, bodying out receivers to come down with interceptions. Could this, in theory, push Alohi Gilman out of the Chargers' plans? It might. Alohi Gilman is more viewed as, a run support safety. And when you play him out deep with Derwin in the box, it's maybe a lesser upside than if you were to have JT Woods playing up top instead. So keep an eye out for JT Woods. We're going to pay very close attention to how much he's involved in this training camp. Next up, we got Kyle Van Noy. Reborn, right? I'm very excited to see what Kyle Van Noy and the plans are for him this season. I feel like he's going to shine at camp, especially with what they're asking him to do. I feel like the Chargers are asking him to be the Chargers, hybrid inside linebacker 3 and edge 3 at the same time. And I think with quality help on the opposite edge when playing that position, he's going to show that he's still got a lot in the tank, right? I think he got something like 6 sacks a couple of seasons ago. I feel like that's around the same realm of what we're going to see with him this year, maybe even a little bit better. He's also shown very excellent ability at inside linebacker. So I feel like in the Staley system and with the surrounding talent around Kyle Van Noy, we're going to see some quality play from him. And I do think we're going to see indicators of that throughout training camp. Very excited to see what he brings to the team in 2022. Next up, let's talk a little bit about running back, right? Isaiah Spiller, hot take here, wins the RB2 job immediately. All right, maybe not the boldest take, but one that is definitely one to be taken seriously, right? I do feel like the Chargers drafted Isaiah Spiller to be the running back 2 of this team. We're looking for an archetype that's really good between the tackles, that's got that kind of power run to him, it's got the size, it's got the length. I feel like he's definitely the kind of guy that complements what we've got already in Austin Eckler. I feel like in training camp, we're going to see a lot of Spiller flexing and short yardage play with now a much better offensive line than he had with the Texas A&M Aggies. I like this a lot, man. We might even see more 2 running back packages in training camp involving both Isaiah Spiller and Austin Eckler. I feel like that's something that Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley would want to implement a lot more in 2022. So Isaiah Spiller, get excited to see what he's got to offer. He's already looked really nice in OTAs. But what does that mean for his fellow running back in Joshua Kelly? I think that Joshua Kelly is on his way out the door. I think with so much talent in that running back room now, Joshua Kelly may have fumbled away his opportunity. I've actually liked a lot of what I've seen from Joshua Kelly in terms of his ball carrying ability, his vision, but at the same time, he just lacks that huge playmaking ability to me, and he has fumbled way too often in very critical situations for the Chargers where I think they could even justify keeping him on the roster, especially when you got guys like Isaiah Spiller on the roster. So we're going to say that Joshua Kelly might be a cut for this team. Next up, we've got Letty Brown overtaking Larry Roundtree as the Chargers running back 3. And this one's also very interesting because Larry Roundtree, his first season didn't go spectacularly, right? But that is just his first year in a rookie season. Maybe the Chargers want to give him more of an opportunity. You can see that Letty Brown and Larry Roundtree is 3A and 3B for the Chargers roster. But honestly, Letty Brown to me looks like a real free agency steal or an undrafted free agent steal, right? I feel like Letty Brown is really going to turn some heads this training camp. And unfortunately for Larry Roundtree, it may also push him further down the depth chart a little bit as well. So Letty Brown, undrafted, maybe the bold take is that he makes the roster, but I think that he's going to look very good, so much and so that he overtakes last year's draftee in Larry Roundtree. Next up, let's talk about a emerging fan favorite among the Chargers fans. Staying with the halfback, fullback topic here in Xander Horvath. I think Xander Horvath is going to win the job early, and this is in no way disrespectful to Gabe Nabors, who I think is pretty decent as well. BFFs with Justin Herbert. I just don't know how much the Chargers have been getting him involved in recent seasons, and whether that's by play design or whether that's in confidence of the player, I don't know. All I know is that the Chargers selected Xander Horvath for a reason. I believe it's because the Chargers want to get their power run more involved this season. It's going to open up that passing game a little bit more. It's going to give them options on fourth downs and third and shorts. I feel like Xander Horvath was a plan from the beginning in terms of he's available, towards the later rounds of the draft, and the Chargers did pull the trigger on him. Maybe this is not a hugely bold take, as the Chargers did just draft him. It's a very low chance of him not making the roster this season, but at the same time, Xander shows, some great signs of being a very dominant short yardage back as well as a fullback in the NFL. I think he's going to show signs as well as being a great run blocker very early in camp, and this is going to be very exciting to see when paired up with the other Chargers rookies in Zion Johnson and of course Isaiah Spiller. More fullback involvement in general, I feel, is going to be more displayed during training camp, where the Chargers want to get Horvath, Spiller, and this offensive line involved very early. So Horvath, to me, I think is going to be an easy lock to win that job very early. Unfortunately for Gabe Nabors, but I do think this is going to be a very good sign of what the Chargers want to do going forward in involving more power run. Next up, this one's going to be kind of interesting, and I'm kind of interested to see in what the Chargers fandom reaction would be to even this question, this theory, this topic. Maybe a backup quarterback shift is in the works for the Chargers here in the near future. Now, hear me out. I know it's kind of jarring to see Cam Newton all of a sudden up on the screen, but this is my thought process, right? And this is a bold predictions video, maybe even just a bold take. I'm not quite sure how, realistic that this one comes out to, but in my mind, the Chargers are all in, right? They've gone out there and they've loaded this roster with superstars. The roster is looking absolutely outstanding. In my opinion, with an all-in year like this, maybe it's not a bad idea to cover your bases in terms of a quarterback too. Signing a guy like Cam Newton, in my opinion, would be much safer than keeping a guy like Chase Daniel. Now, Chase Daniel doesn't offer a lot in terms of mentorship to a guy like Justin Herbert, but maybe you can just keep him around for camp. If the Chargers were to cut Chase Daniel, they'd only be taking a dead cap hit of $200,000, which is really nothing in the NFL. And having a guy like Cam Newton as a backup does give you a little bit of a safer backup quarterback going into the season than Chase Daniel, who we saw in preseason. He did not look very good. I don't know, man. In a year that we're going all in, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with a more capable quarterback like Cam Newton. Even though he's not Cam Newton of old, he does resemble a lot of what Justin Herbert does at a much lower level, and I would feel more confident in him being a backup versus another guy. And there could be other quarterbacks other than Cam Newton that do resemble the kind of upside that he brings at QB2 other than, Chase Daniel. Next up, let's talk about one of the most exciting additions this offseason in Khalil Mack. Joey Bosa paired up with him. My hot take is going to be that they're going to create some serious and very real synergy. Now, synergy to me is when two players of different or similar skill sets come together and complement one another very well. So much so that you could really call them a dominant duo in the NFL. And that's hard to find in the league. I feel like Bosa and Mack are going to create something very special very, very early. In terms of week one, game one, snap one on defense, we're going to see some impact plays. And a lot of that relationship and communication is going to come from camp, right? Come from exposure and getting to know one another via camp. And an obvious synergy to me means natural, unspoken communication. I feel like these guys are going to get on the same page very quickly, especially both having a lot of exposure to the Brandon Staley system. We would love to see looks for them on the same side, even sometimes, different ways to utilize this pairing. I feel like this combo is going to be one of the quicker to come into development during training camp, and it's going to be very obvious very, very early. Next up, let's talk about a topic that was kind of a hot topic last season and the season previous in the Chargers wide receivers and the dropping issues. My hot take here is going to be that Keenan and the wide receivers show huge improvement in their catching, okay? And this is going to be something even more important than last year with Justin Herbert adding a ton of weight. Those, passes are going to come in a lot hotter. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, these guys are going to really have to put in the work this offseason to adjust to the kind of force behind Justin Herbert's pass. And I feel like we're going to see it, right? I feel like Keenan Allen, definitely one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's going to recognize this, and I do know he recognized this last season. He's going to take it very seriously this season. I think this trio of wide receivers are going to improve vastly in terms of being conscious about the situation, conscious about the issue, and resolving it, especially in this valuable time in camp before kickoff. So I'm very confident that we're going to see some improvements in terms of the Chargers holding onto those footballs and limiting those drops. Next up, in terms of wide receivers, another kind of bold take, maybe in the same realm as the Cam Newton take. I feel like we're going to see another wide receiver enter the fold, okay? And right now you're seeing Will Fuller on the screen. Will Fuller, to me, very fast, very talented. He would certainly add a very exciting element to the Chargers roster. But to me, I think the Chargers just need to find a fresh face that carries speed, right? And we've seen that very many times in years past with Jalen Guyton, Tyron Johnson. I feel like we need another guy that's similar to that, right? One that's not going to break the bank like a Kyle Fuller, but one that does have the upside and, more importantly, the speed to add another element to this Chargers wide receiver core that really helps out a guy like Jalen Guyton, whereas he's the only speed option on the Chargers roster right now. I think getting one more is a very, very good idea, even if he's more of an unknown player in the league right now, or maybe not even in the league right now. If you got two guys like that, we know the potential. Justin Herbert and that strong arm. We saw a lot of what we call H-bombs on the channel in his rookie season, constantly hitting Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton for deep touchdowns. I feel like adding another weapon would be very intelligent in terms of trying to resemble what we did see in his rookie season. And it doesn't have to be a guy as expensive as Will Fuller, but one that does have the speed to back up kind of the theory, right? So there you go. Next up, let's talk about, again, another crazy exciting addition to this offseason in J.C. Jackson. We're going to call this one the J.C. Jackson effect. Bold take here. I think we're going to see a massive uptick in man coverage. And this is something I've been talking about a lot in the previous, 3 or 4 months, with the traits of the players that the Chargers have been signing and even drafting. It feels like man coverage has kind of been in the plans for the Chargers for quite a while now. Now with J.C. Jackson and the improved pass rush, I think it's time to really unleash the beast. And we've seen some crazy good man coverage designed by Brandon Staley with the Los Angeles Rams, and even in some parts with the Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like the J.C. Jackson effect is going to heavily influence the Chargers to begin utilizing a little bit more man coverage this season, because with sticky coverage, you're going to find yourself a lot more prompts to use unique blitz packages, okay? And this is what Brandon Staley, we know he loves to do. We saw so much of it with the Los Angeles Rams and his teams previous on defense. I want to see that come to the Chargers. Now that you got J.C. Jackson, you got Khalil Mack, you got all these guys, surrounding in what a system that would very much so fit more blitzing for man cover. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. So for me, J.C. Jackson, his effect is going to be felt throughout the Chargers defense in terms of what they're trying to do, the kind of scheme that they're going to implement, and the kind of things that they're going to do with the unique blitz packages that we've seen so successful in the Staley system in years previous. The last thing I'm going to say is that J.C. Jackson versus Keenan Allen, that's going to be a fantastic watch. If you guys get a chance to go to training camp, I'm sure that's going to be one of the more exciting elements to see in person with two such talented players on the Chargers roster. Speaking of cornerbacks, I feel like Asante Samuel Jr. is going to make a big leap this season, which is already saying something. He had a great rookie season to start off his career. And in speaking of the J.C. Jackson effect, I think his influence on Asante Samuel Jr. is going to be very, very obvious, right? I just saw a clip of him a couple of days ago of him running toe-and-toe with Keenan Allen. Wow. That absolutely blew my mind. The talent of Asante Samuel Jr., we have just scratched to the surface. And when you surround a young, talented player with so much upside, with the superstars like J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, even a Bryce Callahan who has a lot to offer in terms of mentorship, we often see these guys develop very, very quickly. And I feel like Asante Samuel Jr., albeit being very good last season, is about to make a big leap in 2022, not only with the help he's getting from these veteran superstars, but just from the exposure that they're going to be bringing him in camp. So Asante Samuel, look for him to make another level up this offseason. Now, I'm really happy that we brought up Bryce Callahan too, because I feel like Bryce Callahan may be flying under the radar in terms of Charger signings this offseason. Because, yeah, he's not as big as J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, et cetera, but at the same time, despite his injury-riddled history, I feel like Callahan is an awesome player, right? And a lot of it, yes, it does depend on whether or not he can stay on the field, but when he is on the field, he's one of the best slot cornerbacks in the league. I'm going to say look for him to fulfill duties, at the slot position a lot for the Chargers, creating a lot of versatility and flexibility with what they can do with Asante Samuel Jr., J.C. Jackson. But when he is on the field, I do expect him to make some plays. I think that he's going to show a lot of this in camp. I think he's going to show a lot of Chargers fans and maybe Broncos fans and Bears fans or whatever, that he's still got the stuff. He just needs to stay on the field. And in speaking terms of those blitz packages that we were talking about, I saw a lot of Bryce Callahan blitzing from the cornerback position too in the slot. I would love to see him utilized a lot that way this season too, because he was very much so very good at it. So Bryce Callahan flying under the radar a little bit. I think we're going to see some very nice things from him in camp to get us really excited about what he can do in season. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Michael Davis returning to form. This is going to be another bull taker. I know he had a very off season last year, but I think a lot of it had to do with the new scheme, right, in his struggles. With all the help that he's getting now, again, just very similar to Asante Samuel. Asante Samuel will be a big help to him as well. I feel like we can see a very realistic bounce-back season for him this year. Because Michael Davis 2 years ago looked very, very good. We need to get back to that. We know it exists with Michael Davis. And the upside with Michael Davis, too, is that he carries some very desirable attributes in terms of size and speed. 6'2", ran a very nice 40. We want to utilize Michael Davis. We just have to get him up to speed with this brand new scheme. And who else better to help shape him into that Staley scheme than a guy like J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, Bryce Callahan, et cetera, et cetera. All these guys are bringing so much experience to the table that I feel like it's going to really help Michael Davis return to form, okay? Another Chargers DB I wanted to talk a little bit about is Nasir Adderley. I think he's going to turn into a playmaking machine. Nas is going to love playing with all of these superstars. Of course, he's loved playing with Derwin James. I think last season was really their first season playing together because they've been on and off injured. And that's the first season that we saw some real improvement from him was last season as well. You add JC to the mix. You add all these other guys, Callahan, Asante Samuel, and then the pass rush. I think we're going to see something very cool from Nasir Adderley this season. I think we're going to see a very, very big leap for him in terms of playmaking ability because he's always had great instincts. But this sort of coverage could turn him into a robber, literally. I think that the dude is going to have a nose for the football. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for him to get involved in, playmaking situations in terms of interceptions, forcing fumbles, whatever. I feel like he's going to have a much better season this year with how much he's surrounded with quality talent now. So I like Nas making a big leap in 2022. Next up, we have to cover this, dudes. I know we've talked, your ears off about this topic for a long time, but, Matt Filer getting early reps at right tackle, I think that's something you should expect to see, at least in my bold predictions. Of course, I know the Chargers want to keep him at guard. We know that chemistry works on the left side with Matt Filer. But with the Chargers roster and the way it looks right now, I feel like it is complete outside that right tackle position. I do think the Chargers are playing a little bit of, hide and seek when it comes to their plans at right tackle. I feel it makes so much sense to move Matt Filer to right tackle with all his experience previously with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've got quality guys behind him that can step into that guard position. And then you've also got Zion Johnson, who will be playing right beside him. I just feel like there's a lot of upside in terms of moving him to right tackle. It just makes too much sense, right? But why now, right? We've already talked about this topic a lot. Why now specifically is it a good idea to move Matt Filer to right tackle? I think a big reason for that is going to be Amari Sawyer. Sawyer provides the confidence in moving Filer to right tackle because of the shoes that he's stepping into. I feel like Sawyer is a very, very solid player, a huge steal in the NFL draft, and one that gives me a lot of confidence. And, you know, oh my God, are we going to ruin that chemistry on the left side? No, I feel like Sawyer's going to step in there and do a heck of a job. His pass blocking is outstanding. He's got great upside and run blocking as well, but I feel like he's going to shine at camp, and he's going to be a big reason why the Chargers feel confident in moving Matt Feiler to right tackle. Look for Sawyer, man. I think he's going to make some plays, going to turn some heads, and I think he's definitely going to be a big reason why the Chargers offensive line doesn't look as bad as we all think. And finally, on the offensive line, I feel like Zion Johnson is going to shine. Not so much of a bold take, right? But, you know, I think it kind of is. I'm very excited to see what he's got to offer. I think he's got year one Pro Bowl potential. If I were to look at, like, maybe a bold take, maybe it's a position shift, right? Because with Sawyer and Feiler, you know, you could put Sawyer in at left or at right guard, right? That's what he played in college. You can move Sawyer into right guard and Zion Johnson into left guard, which is also what he played in college. Putting them at their natural positions might be very beneficial. So if I had to make a bold take, maybe the offensive line is as such. Slater. Then you've got Zion Johnson, Lindsley, Sawyer, and then Matt Feiler. Now, I feel like Sawyer being a much better pass protector than he is a run blocker. Maybe we could see him stay on the left side because that's kind of the trait you want to see on the left side, but who knows? I think it would be a possibility to put those guys at their natural positions with the Matt Feiler move. Next up, another guy that we actually haven't talked to super much about, right? It's going to be Morgan Fox, who my hot take is going to be he overtakes Jerry Tillery's position very, very early. And I do think that puts Jerry Tillery on the roster bubble. I think he is there right now. That could indicate a possible cut. Morgan Fox was an absolute steal for this team. He signed a one-year, $1 million team with contract with the Chargers, and he looks pretty dang good when paired with Brandon Staley. Last season, he had a stint with the Panthers, didn't really do much, but the year before that, in 2020, with Brandon Staley in the Rams, the dude posted a career high in sacks. I think 6 sacks from the interior defensive line position. That's absolutely insane. He's also much better versus the run than Jerry Tillery. I feel like the upside in terms of Morgan Fox versus Jerry Tillery is very much so in Fox's corner. So with that, I think that Morgan Fox is going to be that piece that helps complete this Chargers defensive line, and that could push Jerry Tillery to the wayside. So get excited about Morgan Fox. Make sure to pay attention to him in camp. I think he's going to be a very interesting story to watch develop. Next up, we got my dude, Breiden Fehoko, man. Fehoko is a hugely valuable player, in my opinion. I know he's flying under the radar for a lot of people. I think a lot of people first heard about him when he did the Haka on the HBO programming. Very, very cool dude, but also a very talented player. The number one defensive lineman versus the run last season, which is kind of crazy with how bad the Chargers' run defense was. I would love to see him inserted between Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson early. I feel like my bold take will be Fehoko could see reps with the ones in camp this year because of how good he can play nose tackle, how good he is versus the run. Maybe he's not always the Chargers, nose tackle, especially in, pass rushing situations. But when defending the run, I feel like we should take advantage of what Fehoko did last season. At least make sure he's still on the same page as last year, that he can remain consistent year to year. Get him some reps with the ones. I would love to see him get a shot at playing beside Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson. Another bold take here is I feel like the Chargers. Let's actually take a look here at, Sebastian Joseph Day and these guys that we've added. I feel like the Chargers defensive line is going to look like the real deal. The Chargers struggling so mightily versus the run last year. I feel like Chargers fans are going to get a huge sigh of relief during training camp with how well the defensive line comes together to defend the run. That weakness of last year could turn into a strength, and I feel like the Chargers defensive line is going to look like the real deal very early, especially with guys like Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, Breiden Fehoko, and a flurry of other guys behind him. I think this is going to be a triumphant combo to really shut down the run this season. We're going to recognize that very early. Next up, in terms of defensive line, because a very important topic going into the season, the Chargers, in my opinion, are going to roster like 6 defensive linemen. Okay, and this is going to be a lot, but this is a big issue the Chargers are trying to resolve, and they brought in a lot of bodies, a lot of people to try and resolve the issue. I think the Chargers could enter the season with Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, Morgan Fox, Atito Abonia, obviously the rookie, and then Breiden Fehoko and Christian Covington. which would push Derry Tillery out. Now that I'm just realizing, maybe they could roster 7, which would be absolutely crazy. But I think with Tillery being on the roster bubble and then the other names that we're seeing on the Chargers roster right now, it makes it even more realistic to me that Jerry Tillery could be cut. There's just too much talent that we've added to maybe justify a guy that really struggled versus the run last season. It's really hard for me to imagine Tillery making the cut, but you really never know. You really never know. Next up, another one that I really wanted to highlight. We're getting close to the end here, guys. I really wanted to highlight a bold take in terms of Kenneth Murray showing signs of a serious comeback, okay? I know he's fresh off ankle surgery. He's absent for OTAs. I do think he's believed to return for Chargers training camp. I do believe he returns to camp and shows a vast improvement without the ailment of injury. And of course, he had a personal tragedy in the passing of his brother. I think it was just a very unfortunate year for Kenneth Murray, a very tragic year for Kenneth Murray, and I do think we see signs of a serious comeback very, very early. We drafted him in the first round for a reason. He's huge. He's fast. He's a great tackler. Sideline to sideline speed. I feel like I'm not ready to give up on him yet, and I do think we're going to see signs of a comeback very early in training camp. And finally, to answer my own question at the top of the video, who do I think is going to be the 2022 Chargers camp star? Well, let me end the video with this man right here, number 7 for the Chargers, Gerald Everett. My hot take is that Gerald Everett is going to emerge as the camp star this season. I don't know. There's something about Everett that I can't put my finger on. He looks like a star, right? But he's never had a dominant quarterback. He missed the Matt Stafford years with the Los Angeles Rams. And then last season with Russell Wilson, that was Russell Wilson's worst year by far with the Seattle Seahawks. When you pair him up with a guy like Herbert, I feel like we are about to exhume the talent of a very, very good tight end underneath everybody's noses. And Herbert, he flashed brilliance utilizing a tight end like Mark Andrews in the Pro Bowl, if you guys remember. Justin Herbert knows how to utilize these weapons. And I feel like there's just something inside me that tells me that Gerald Everett is going to emerge in camp as that guy. And I feel like in season, he's going to make a huge difference for the Chargers on offense. And he's going to be one of those guys that sneaks under the radar, up until the point, man, my goodness, this guy just passed 500 yards, in week like 11. He's got, 4 or 5 touchdowns already. The upside looks really good to close the season out. I feel like Gerald Everett is going to be a very nice add to this team, and he's going to show signs of it very early in training camp. So my bottom line here for this video, guys, there's a lot of players and positions to keep an eye on this offseason. So much has changed for the Chargers in 2022. There's going to be loads of competition. We're going to do a separate video as far as camp battles coming into the 2022 training camp a little bit later. But what I'm seeing is fantastic right now. The turnout at OTAs is a huge eye-opener for me. How many players actually showed up? Bosa never shows up. He was there. Khalil Mack, respected veteran. He didn't have to be there. He was there. JC, all these players coming together voluntarily is huge. This team believes they're onto something special. They're all taking this very super seriously because they recognize what they got. And this is the sort of attitude that is exactly what shapes champions. This is the attitude you need right here. Staley has not only assembled a roster of superstars, he's established a winning culture within the Chargers organization. And that's something to really celebrate because this will have a very lasting effect. And to me, at least, it's even more important than signing superstars to fat contracts. Yes, it is a part of it, but the mindset has been shifted. Watch out for the Los Angeles Chargers in 2022. Bolt up, baby. It's a winning culture here out in LA now. And with this ensemble of superstars, competition, quality backups, quality coaching, it's going to be a very fun one to witness in 2022. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. If you did enjoy this content, we'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. 2022, it's going to be absolutely wild, man. Watch out for Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa.